Number one, Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends. Today I wanted to compare Prince Harry with the Sugar's favorite red herring whenever I criticize Harry, Prince Andrew. Fair warning, this is a listen-only video. I've of course added pictures, but nothing you have to look at to understand what I'm saying. I think we all can agree that of these two problem princes, Andrew is worse. Not personality-wise, that's up for debate. They're both horrid in different ways, but also the same way in terms of absolutely off-the-charts entitlement. But what Andrew did is way worse, and yes, personally, I do think he did it. I don't think anybody flew the Lolita Express to Epstein Island to have a drink and sunbathe. I think the late queen believed it too. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stripped him of his military titles and royal patronages and retired him as a working royal and a public figure in her last year on Earth. She would have left it to Charles. I can't imagine how painful it was for her to learn this about her purportedly favorite child. That doesn't, however, mean the Sugars make a good argument when they say Harry and Meghan are treated worse by the royals than Andrew and deserve better. That's not true. Andrew also had his allowance cut off. Every effort was made to evict him as well, and he's only appeared at Christmas, Easter, and funerals. Truly the minimum required formal contact in a traditional Christian family. So, how has Harry managed to get himself and his immediate family uninvited from even these? I thought of 6 reasons we can chat about, but of course, if I missed any or you have any of your own ideas, let us know in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. I'm also really curious to know what you think will happen to Andrew once Charles is gone. We know William won't even speak to Harry. Do you think it's possible for Andrew to be made even more of a persona non grata? Will he be asked to move into a shed behind Ivy Cottage? Anyway, here are my thoughts on why Andrew has had more, if still very minimal, luck slithering back into the good graces of his brother, and Harry has not. Number one, to state the obvious, Andrew's egregious offenses were against third parties, and the royal family's reputation was collateral damage. Harry has repeatedly, maliciously, directly attacked innumerable times over several years the royal family as a whole and each of many individual members, from the king himself to some butler in the 80s who gave him one less sausage at breakfast. Andrew's loyalty to the royal family and pride in being a member of the royal family is the most obvious and biggest difference. 2. Unlike Harry, Andrew has a wife pulling for him, not against him. Fergie never has a bad word to say about Andrew's family. She's rarely invited to things, but when she is, she's there 10 minutes early, in her best frock, on her best behavior, telling anyone who will listen how wonderful everything is. These aren't complicated royal duties. They're basic manners when you're invited to a nice party. But Meghan refuses to show them. Don't call your husband's dad a racist, in public anyway. Don't ignore the dress code. Don't show up late. Don't fight about your assigned seat. Fergie has had more than her fair share of scandals. She's gotten blacklisted for them by the royal family every time, sometimes for decades. These days, when she's invited, it's because she's a pleasant proxy for Andrew at events involving Beatrice and Eugenie. Salt and pepper always moving together means Harry cut off an important potential post-estrangement conduit back to his family. If H&M's long-term plan was to move to the US, sell out the royals for $1 zillion, live the high life until they were out of money, and crawl back to the UK begging for an allowance and an apartment decades on, they should have played good cop, bad cop, and chosen one of them to exclusively badmouth the royals. That way the other could plausibly play peacemaker, as the tabloids like to say. Speaking of potential future innocent conduits back to the royals, the third big difference between Andrew and Harry is how they've played their biggest bargaining chip, their kids. Andrew seems to understand that he's an embarrassment who's included mostly for his children's sake, and only very occasionally for his own. Rightfully or wrongfully, Andrew rode his kids' coattails to whatever minor reconciliation he's achieved, though I don't think he's been very close to any of his siblings since the early 90s anyway. The inclusion of Beatrice and Eugenie in various events forced Charles to carefully consider when and where Andrew could or should be invited, including where Sarah might substitute. Andrew never weaponized his children, grandchildren, or wife against the larger royal family, and never bet on their importance to the family to get something for himself. In his legal war against the UK over fake security concerns, for which he has named and blamed his father personally, Harry has made it impossible for the royal family to include his children, and therefore impossible to scurry in behind them as the doors close. Harry overplayed his hand with the kids and lost. Terrible parenting. And I think he keeps doubling down on these security lawsuits because he's aware and ashamed of this. He's isolating and failing his children out of self interest, but his sense of entitlement just won't let him do otherwise. Speaking of security, the fourth biggest difference I see between how Andrew and Harry handle their rejection is Harry's hangup with security theatrics. Harry frequently rails against his father for removing security as a punitive measure, and I don't totally disagree. I see that, but I think Charles is loath to pay for unneeded security to prop up egos, not reluctant to pay for necessary protection. Eugenie and Beatrice are again great examples. They both got their 24/7 police protection pulled in 2011, and I always see this portrayed as the then Prince Charles intervening after each spent inordinate sums traveling the world with their police protection. And while this is absolutely true, they both have traveled really everywhere, including places absolutely no one would have any clue they were princesses unless told directly. I think it also had something to do with the youngest of the pair turning 21 and a transition into responsible adulthood. Charles didn't pull security before their gap years, he did it after. He didn't want them to be unsafe. The assumption is that in their private and professional lives as non working royals, they are no less safe than any other minor celebrity whose calendar and schedule can be worked out by a stalker, probably, and who should use a guard for any big public appearances, but day to day is fine with the same incidental protection we all receive. They do receive police protection for royal engagements or when requested in advance for very good reason. As does Harry, by the way. He received police protection courtesy of Ravek when he went to the 10th anniversary for Invictus in London in 2024. He's not being denied the safety of police protection when necessary. He's being denied the status of police protection round the clock. And he can't stand it. Prince Andrew himself lost police protection in 2022 when he was relieved of his royal duties, and King Charles did not renew his private security team when their contract expired in fall 2024. As a non working royal, Andrew wasn't entitled to police protection, and after refusing to move to Frogmore Cottage or anywhere else on a royal property that already had round the clock security and thereby would save the £4 million a year required to protect Royal Lodge, Andrew was asked to pay his own way, which he can't, with or without security. Yet he hasn't filed any lawsuit. He hasn't given multiple clownish interviews and statements on the topic. Could it be because everyone knows that he's quite safe despite being roundly despised? And it's mostly security theater? Harry, in stark contrast, keeps filing lawsuits demanding the police protection given to working royals, even though he isn't a working royal, is 40 years old, doesn't live in the UK, and doesn't represent the UK abroad. When asked why, he says the UK is so full of racist hate, he can't let his children step foot there. His tiny white children, whom he can and does afford private security. And when asked if he shouldn't make more of an effort to help them know their grandfather, he says it's his father's fault for interfering, or not interfering, he flip-flops, when a committee or court would otherwise have granted him police protection. Harry's lust for getting the same police protection as his father and brother, despite his significantly lower status, is so great that he really doesn't see the problem with continually calling UK taxpayers murdering racists while costing them £750,000 in court fees and blaming his father, the king, for all of it. Everyone knows the UK is plenty safe. Charles knows, Andrew knows, and indulging Harry with unnecessary police protection would be tantamount to admitting his lies about the UK and his father and his family are true. Even if his father wanted to give in, which he clearly doesn't, the UK courts wouldn't let him. It's never going to happen. Just stop it. Number 5. Andrew and Harry seem to have very differing needs for narrative control and control of optics. Andrew had the sense to stop talking to reporters after his apocalyptic interview. Harry can't shut up, hasn't shut up in years. Andrew is happy to take any optics on the royal family's terms. He knows he'll never be an adored public figure ever again, and believe it or not, once upon a time in the 70s and 80s he really was. These days, he's happy to be photographed with his daughters or sister just to not look like an irredeemable sex pest. He certainly has never hired Batgrid. Harry only wants family optics on his own terms. He wants the police security, not private security, because it looks higher status. He wants the front row seat, not the third row seat, because it looks higher status. He wants to wear his uniform, not just his medals. He wants you to know he's the Duke of Sussex, not just Harry. He even sent Backroyd to photograph his secretary chatting with his dad's secretary and sold that to the tabloids. Does Harry even want reconciliation, or just optics he can pass off as proof of reconciliation and sell to tabloids, along with some fake story about how the King and William apologized to him and admitted they were wrong about everything this whole time? I'm sure that's what the royals are wondering. After all, they can't verbally respond to his nonsense, so they must otherwise disavow it as conspicuously as possible. If Harry doesn't stop trying to control the narrative generally, but the optics especially, he will never weasel his way back into the fold, even as a private member invited to things so big, not inviting him would make William look bad, like Charles's funeral. Harry telling paparazzi exactly which hedge in Windsor has a hole in it and can be stood behind to get the perfect shot is an actual real security concern. My sixth and final reason Andrew has made his way back better than Harry is also about control, but not ceding control, simply demonstrating self-control. After his infamous Emily Matliss interview, the reaction and the household fallout, about which there were some leaks blaming Fergie and his girls and his comms team for encouraging him when they really shouldn't have, Andrew went to ground for almost 2 years. The press photos from Beatrice's wedding weren't even the happy couple with their parents, it was the happy couple with her grandparents. Either Andrew knew it was too soon or listened to the people around him who did. Imagine how much water could flow under the bridge if Harry and Meghan would just shut up for 2 years. I don't think those two could make it through a 5-day silent retreat at a luxury resort. They're publicity addicts. It's an addiction, it's a disease, it's an impulse control problem, and they're surrounded by enablers, PR professionals, talent agents, TV producers who are literally paid to encourage their pathological behavior. Can you even imagine how different their lives and careers would be if they cultivated the tiniest modicum of self-control? All right, that's enough rambling for today. Let me know in the comments, who do you think has handled their royal rejection better? Toodles! Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.